Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Sarah Curitan, and I am the Executive Director of the New Jersey Historical Commission, as well as the New Jersey Cultural Trust. So I'm delighted to welcome you all to wonderful Camden County Historical Society. For those of you joining us online, I feel bad for you because you're not here with us in beautiful Camden, but please come visit. Jack and his team would love to welcome you here at another time. So I always like to start by making sure we all get introduced to one another. So since we have both a group online and a group in the room, we're going to try to introduce everybody. And we're working with a microphone up here, so I'm not going to have you go around the room because they won't be able to hear you. What I'm going to do is read your names from the sign-in list, okay? And please correct me if I'm getting pronunciations wrong. So I'd like to start by welcoming Assemblyman William Spearman from the 5th District, and we're thrilled to have you here, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. And this is your district. Applause, absolutely. We are thrilled that you are here. So I'm just using the list here. So we have Carrie Fellows from Hunterdon County. We have Tim Hart from Ocean County is here. If you didn't sign in, I'm not going to call your name, so you'll have to sing out. We have Mary Rugarber. Have I got that right, Mary? Okay. From Gloucester County. We also have Nikki Todaro from Save Alice. Thank you. There she is. Let's see. We have Martha Lieblich from Martha. And you're from here, aren't you?
Well, I'm former trustee of Crossroads.
That's what it is. Perfect. Okay, so welcome. We also have Rich Surface. Hi, Rich. And Rich is from the South Jersey chapter of the SAR. Welcome, welcome. We also have Samantha Stokes from Ocean County. We have Richard Burr from Gloucester County, right? I got that right? Yep. Awesome. We have Josh. Josh Lazowski, where's Josh? There he is, right, from Camden County Historical Society. We have Chris Diamond from Brigade of the American Revolution. See, I'm learning everybody's name, it's great. And we've already introduced Assemblyman Spearman. We have Mark Texel from DEP. George Leone. And George, you are, what's your interested citizen? That's fantastic. That's, yay! We also have, is it Sergio Moncada? I got that right? Wonderful. And you're with National Parks Conservation Association. Wonderful. Welcome. Glad to have you here. And then we have finally Jason, is it Wickerson? Wickerstein. Perfect. From Gateway National Park. So we have state parks. Another. You're federal. This is awesome. We've got local, we've got state, we've got national, we've got county, we've got it all. That's fantastic. Now, also from the Historical Commission staff, we have Madeline Rosenberg, who's manning the laptop for us this morning, and Greer Luce as well. And Janice Selinger is here from Crossroads of the American Revolution. Janice, why don't you come and introduce yourself and your staff?
Morning, everybody. I'm Janice Selinger. I'm the Executive Director of Crossroads of the American Revolution National Heritage Area. With me here today is Roseanne Butterfield, who's our new office administrator, Joe Delmar, who is our intern, and on the phone is Susan Kaufman, who's our communications director.
Super. Now, we have a few other folks in the room who have not yet signed in. Greer, maybe I'll ask you to put that back so people can sign in. I know we have Margaret Westfield here from Westfield Architects. Also, she serves on the Historical Commission Board. Who else have we not introduced? Wonderful. We also have Mary Diamond from the Brigade of the American Revolution. Mary Cruz is here from Congressman Norcross's office. Welcome. Great. We got everyone else. Now, online. Perfect.
All right, so this is Madeline, and I'm going to do my best again to pronounce everyone's names correctly and read who we have online. So it might take a minute as I'm scrolling up the chat screen. Pamela Robinson Smith, Snyder Academy and First Presbyterian Church of Elizabethtown. Let's see. Oh, there's a video. Barbara Lamort, Caldwell Parsonage Union Township Historical Society. Just a little bit louder, I think. Sure. Let me just scroll up all the way. Just 1 second. Sorry, it is a long chat screen. Okay, we've got Cynthia Blumenkrantz said Kathy Fox from the Abraham Stotts House and Olinda Young from the Somerset County Historic Society, and Cindy Blumenkrantz is from, sorry, where's the mouse? There we go. From Heritage Trail Association at the Van Horn House.
Van Horn House, very good.
Will this cause feedback, though? Okay. Okay, anyone who is online and this is too loud, let me know. And I'm just scrolling up to make sure I haven't missed anyone. I think that's it. And then on the attendee list that I'm just going to look at to make sure, I see Jennifer Costa of Elizabeth, New Jersey Tourism, Jennifer Cox, Jessica Bush of the, is it Day or Die Mansion? Die Mansion. Kim Armstrong, I don't see an affiliation, but feel free to add that to the chat screen. And that is everyone I see. Please let me know if I missed anyone. Oh, I see Annette Erling from Washington Crossing Park Association of New Jersey. And that is the last message that's come in.
And I also want to acknowledge Steve Askew, who is our board member for Crossroads of the American Revolution, who just came in. So if you haven't signed the sign-in sheet, please do so.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so that's, I think there are two more, and who are they, Madeline? I'll just repeat the names. Okay, Tom Hoffman and hi Tom, and who's the other one? Jen Cox, also from Gateway. So Gateway is well represented today. And Kim Armstrong from NJDAR. So those are the folks that have joined us today. We're thrilled to have all of you. And we are recording this webinar, so we will post it for those who weren't able to join us today. Now, for those on the online with GoToMeeting, we do want to hear your questions, even if you're not here with us in the room. So please tap your questions, type your questions into the message, the chat box on GoToMeeting, and Madeline is monitoring those questions, and we'll make sure that we get them and answer them to the best of our ability, right? So with all of that housekeeping done, I'd like to ask Jack O'Byrne, the Executive Director here at Camden County Historical Society, just to offer everyone a welcome.
Hi, I'm Jack O'Byrne with the Executive Director from the Camden County Historical Society. I'd like to thank Bill Spearman, our Assemblyman, for being here. Mary Cruz from the Congressman Norcross's office. Steve Askew is on our board of directors as well as yours. Margaret Westfield, we work very closely with. Josh Lasowski's from our office. If you haven't been here before, we have a 4-building complex here. This is Boyer Hall, our benefactor. We have a 2-story county museum, and we have Pomona Hall and then a caretaker's office. Pomona Hall, I just want to read one paragraph about it and its significance to the Revolutionary War. This Georgian mansion stood as a landmark on the well-traveled Haddonfield-Coopers Ferry Road. Throughout the war, troops marched back and forth past the house. In December 1776, Pennsylvania troops marched by on their way to fight at Mount Holly. In November 1777, a Hessian brigade passed en route to attack Fort Mercer, and then fled back after their bloody defeat. They rendezvoused at Pomona Hall with British light infantry and sent to extricate them. In June 1778, Hessian and British regiments camped in front of the house while on their retreat to New York. One of the many, many untold stories or unknown stories in South Jersey about the Revolutionary War here in South Jersey. I want to point out something else. On Monday, we just submitted to the National Park Service a story about the Battle of Gloucester, New Jersey, a forgotten battle of the American Revolution. And so that's before the National Park Service as of Monday. This is where Lafayette charged the Hessians and outflanked them, a much larger force. And the next day, George Washington recommended to the Continental Congress that he be given a commission in the Continental Congress, and he did. And one more thing I wanted to point out is something ambitious for the Camden County Historical Society. We have a grant proposal in with the New Jersey Historic Trust to do a feasibility study to turn the Benjamin Cooper Tavern into an American Revolution museum of South Jersey to help tell all these unknown or very little known outside of our neck of the woods stories. And if that's the case, hopefully that would be open a couple years before the 250th. So once again, I'd like to thank you all for coming to Camden County. Welcome.
Thank you, Jack. That's great. So the purpose of our meeting today, as I think many of you know, the Historical Commission was charged about a year ago by the legislature to begin planning, programming, and initiatives for the Semiquincentennial. And as part of that charge, we were directed to find a nonprofit partner to join us to create a true public-private partnership. Lo and behold, we found Crossroads of the American Revolution, and they became our official partner in the fall, and we've been working very, very closely together. We've been holding these quarterly meetings for almost 2 years now, actually, and the purpose of today's gathering is, A, to share information with all of you about what we've been doing, how the planning is progressing, but also to hear back from you, your questions, your concerns, your suggestions. This is very much a two-way street. So we look forward, after we've given you an update, we look forward to hearing your questions and suggestions for our work as we move forward. So I think I'm going to start by now giving you a little update on what's been going on at the national level. So I think most of you know there is a United States Semiquincentennial Commission. It was actually formed by Congress in legislation that passed 10 years in advance of this anniversary, so back in 2016. But as is the case often when you're starting from scratch, it takes a while to get up and running. So actually they held their first meeting in November of 2018. And since that time, they've really been getting organized. They hired American Battlefield Trust to serve as their administrative body to help them do the work they are charged with doing. And since that time, really, American Battlefield Trust has been focused on helping the Commission to create a vision for the national celebration and essentially to devise a strategic plan. So they've been in that mood, I would say, for the last, 6 months or so. I think they started with a visioning session with the members of the Commission back in March. And since that time, they've been drafting vision statements, and they've now begun that next stage of actually going out and talking to constituents and gathering input and feedback. So they are anticipating having that plan done by the end of this calendar year, because they also, by the end of the calendar year, are due to present a report to the White House on their progress to date. So the National Commission is working on some pretty tight deadlines at this point to get some of that initial framework in place. I might also note that how many of you are familiar with the American Battlefield Trust? A lot of you in this room. That's great. So for those of you who don't have any experience working with the American Battlefield Trust, they are an organization that is primarily known for working with Civil War battlefields. However, just prior really to their getting the TAP to be the administrative arm of this commission, they extended their reach into Revolutionary War battlefields. And where did they do that? They did that right here in New Jersey. So they had already, even before this, begun a commitment to Princeton battlefield. I think they have about a $5 million investment at this point in Princeton battlefield. And I believe they're also involved in Gloucester with funding some kind of a study, if I'm not incorrect, at the Gloucester battlefield site, I think. But be that as it may, they had already extended their reach into Revolutionary War battlefields, and obviously that is now a big part of their focus. They have also created a nonprofit foundation for the purposes of this anniversary, and that will be the body that will be the recipient of funds that are raised to support, activities and initiatives for the Semiquincentennial. Now, they met in June in Philadelphia. If you haven't read the legislation that created them, I'm sure you all have, right? Yeah. But if you had happened to read that, you would notice that the legislation actually calls for them to always meet in Philadelphia. It's good for Camden, though, because they're right across the water, right? Not so great if you're in Wyoming. But anyway, they did have a meeting in Philadelphia in June. And at that, they did give many of these updates about their work to date. And I do want to share with you one of the big updates is that they have announced that they will now be called America 250. So you don't have to say that big semi-quincentennial word all the time anymore. I see people are smiling. They're happy about that. I kind of like semi-quincentennial, but I think I'm the only one. So America 250 is the name for them. And as I mentioned, they're going to be continuing to hold these feedback sessions around the country with different groups of constituents as they move forward. Now, I also want to give you a brief update on the American Association for State and Local History. How many of you are members? And folks online, you tell us if you're members too. We'll be interested. So the American Association for State and Local History has created a task force on the 250th almost 2 years ago, and I'm honored to chair that group. That group has developed a set of goals, which we've shared with you in the past, goals for the Semiquincentennial. And we have now taken that next step of forming working groups to take each of those 5 goals and really expand them, flesh them out, really articulate what the outcomes of some of those goals might look like from the perspective of the history community, the public history community, and also allied groups. So we have representatives of archival groups and scholarly groups and educational groups have all been participating in that task force. So those working groups are now meeting, and at the annual meeting of the American Association for State and Local History, there will be a convening of the working groups where they will share some of their conversations and share ideas and suggestions with the goal that by the end of September, we will be able to publish papers from each of those working groups that will more fully articulate those 5 goals. And those 5 goals, really quickly, let's see if I can do it really quickly, to emphasize that history is relevant to every American every day, to tell an inclusive story of America's past, to enhance K-12 education in history, to enhance Americans' engagement with history collections, and finally to expand financial support for history, both from the private and the public sector. So those are the 5 goals, and these working groups are going to really flesh those out. So if you have not yet registered to attend, the American Association for State and Local History's annual meeting in Philadelphia at the end of August, August 28th through 31st. Please go home and register. I really want to encourage you all to do that. It is rare that that group meets right in our backyard. In fact, I think it was 59 years ago was the last time they met in Philadelphia. So, I really encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity to get that national perspective. Finally, the ASLH 250th Task Force is doing an annual census of all 50 states and our territories to see where everybody is in their planning for the Semiquincentennial. And the second edition of that report is available through the ASLH website, and it was just published July 4th of this year, so it's hot off the press, the virtual press. And if you want to get a sense of what our partners and our colleagues around the country are doing, it makes interesting reading. Little sneak peek, New Jersey is doing really well compared to some of our other fellow states in terms of getting ready and working on this. So I invite you to take a look at that. Now, I want to invite Janice Selinger, my colleague from Crossroads, to give you a little update on our initiatives here in New Jersey.
Welcome, everybody. And I actually may only do the first part because then it's the social studies, which I think you can address more, and then I'll come back to you again in a minute. First of all, I do want to note that nationally, in case some of you are not aware, we're really thrilled that New Jersey does have a representative on the commission now. When it was initially set up, we did not. And Bonnie Watson-Coleman is the representative for New Jersey, and she's doing a great job, and we're really happy that she's there. So just want to let you know that. Crossroads has been working in this area, for those of you that are aware of the work that we do, for many years. We are working with heritage partners throughout the state to tell the state's unique Revolutionary War story. One of the main things that we are doing in year one of our work is the capital needs assessment. And that was one of the things that we've determined is very important to do. And we had an RFP process where 5 firms applied, and we selected a firm that we are working with on this project. And they are going out to a number of sites throughout the state. The site visits began June 10th, and they're going to run through the month of August, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But the report we are hoping will be concluded in February of 2020 to be presented to our March board meeting of Crossroads of the American Revolution. But we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. Sarah?
We will talk some more about the site assessment, and I do want to encourage any of you who have questions about it to get your questions ready, because we will ask for those. I think dozens of sites have been visited already. We're going to hear from one of the sites that was visited about what that experience was like, and we do want to answer any questions you have about that process today to the best of our ability. If we don't have the answer, we'll get it for you. So the second major initiative that is now underway is the Social Studies Education Survey. We have awarded a contract to Quadrant Research to undertake that comprehensive survey of K-12 social studies education. Now, how many of you have recently read the state's curriculum standards for social studies? Gold star, 3 hands went up in the room, and I'm sure some hands are going up online as well. So if you haven't looked at those recently, just a reminder, the state's standards, they describe social studies as 4 disciplines, just so you are aware of that. And those 4 disciplines are history, geography, civics, and economics. So that's how DOE, our Department of Education, sees social studies. And this survey that we're undertaking is going to take a look at what's being taught in all four of those disciplines, when it's being taught, who's teaching it, what kind of resources are being used, what kind of needs do teachers have. And the whole goal of that is to figure out what we could do in the context of preparing for the Semiquincentennial that's going to have the most positive impact on enhancing that experience for New Jersey students. So Quadrant Research is a well-qualified group to do this because they are the same group that has executed the arts education surveys. If you have not ever looked at one of the surveys of arts education in New Jersey, I invite you to go and take a look. They are available through the website of the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. And I think if you're wondering what kind of information we might get back and what this is all about, I think it will be really useful for you to take a look at what the Arts Education Survey has done on the arts side. They have found it to be such a useful tool that they repeat it, I think, every 5 years. And in fact, it's become something of a national model for arts education advocates around the country because it gives all of us a really invaluable tool to understand what's happening first before we try to prescribe new initiatives for that. I want to also let you know that we have brought on board for the Historical Commission a part-time project manager for this, and her name is Joan Rudiman. She is going to be starting in August. So I'm sure we'll have her at one of our upcoming meetings so you can meet her in person. But Joan, I don't know if any of you have ever come across Joan before, but she's been extremely active with New Jersey History Day. So any of you who've had an opportunity to work with the New Jersey History Day program may have come across Joan and her fine work. She, in addition to that, has retired from being a history teacher herself. So she's got a lot of great credentials to bring to this, and she'll be helping us to manage that very big project. I'm doing long-range planning. Is that me? Do I keep going?
Because it's the
Okay.
listening sessions.
Right. Okay. Very good. So on our PowerPoint, you'll see that the next area that we wanted to update you on is our long-range planning. Now, if you look at the ASLH annual report on what's happening around the country for the 250th, you're going to see it makes really interesting reading because some states are creating brand new commissions to do this. Pennsylvania is taking that approach, for example. And then other states like New Jersey and North Carolina are using existing agencies and structures to do this. But since we took this approach of using existing agencies, we took two groups, Crossroads and the New Jersey Historical Commission, and we have created this partnership. So one of our first steps that we've already launched on is to create a long-range plan for this whole initiative, and to bring together the boards of our two organizations to come together and agree on a shared vision for what we're doing and shared goals. So we began that process officially in June, and we have a consultant helping us. She's drafting a draft version of this that now we're going to be taking out all around the state to listening sessions with different constituents to hear what people think about it and get input from citizens all over the state. So you're going to see in the next few months these listening sessions begin to unfold. We'll be meeting with our county agencies in September, for example. We are planning a meeting with educators in October. And we have, we're going to be meeting with some of our wonderful African American history organizations and constituents. We don't have a date for that yet, but we'll get one very shortly, and so forth and so on. So you can see we're going around the state and testing this vision and goals for this initiative with different constituencies all around the state. So those are our two big initial projects that are underway. And do you want to talk
Yeah,
about the logo contest?
I can, and I also can say that we are also planning one that we have a date of August 15th, but we're firming up the location, so there's a possibility that may shift, but that's for Rev War enthusiasts, so people that have been coming to these meetings, people that haven't been able to come to these meetings, and again, it's going to be limited to 50 because they don't want to have more than that, so that they can have that process going. So look for an email that we'll be sending concerning that. We're also working on the idea that obviously we want to have a name, a logo, something that we can have for our project here in New Jersey that distinguishes us. And we've been talking, our two teams, a lot about this. And we've decided that we want to do something that's a logo contest. So we will be, Greer is bringing that forward, spearheading that, and you'll be hearing a little bit more of that in the coming weeks, we hope. So I wanted to go to some of the things that we have been doing. Some of you here in the room, I know, attended one of our 2 heritage tourism workshops that took place July 9th and 10th. We did one in Hamilton. We did one up at Morristown National Historic Park. We had an opportunity to have Cheryl Hargrove, who is a renowned heritage tourism expert. And she is part of the site assessment team. The site assessment team is Clark, Kate, and Hintz, Hunter Research, and HTC Partners. And so as part of what we were doing with this is we had, more than 100 plus site stewards and other stakeholders attended. And there's a PowerPoint presentation that's on our website. And it's also in the resources portion of this PowerPoint. So if you were unable to come to that, I think it brought up a lot of really interesting ideas and thoughts that we're going to be exploring as we move forward. As far as the site assessment project, more than 80 sites have been visited so far. The plan is to do at least 140 sites, and they may be seeing more than that. And the team is on track to complete the site visits that I had mentioned by the end of August. And then they are going to move towards completing this report, which will include cost estimates so that we can set a campaign council fundraising target. And what we're doing with that is the thought is that the money that we get from the state is not going to be enough to do everything that we need to do here. And so what we're doing is identifying needs throughout the state. And then we are part of the legislation talked about setting up an advisory council. And that advisory council is going to have a campaign council sort of leadership group that we're in the process of identifying some key people that can write significant checks or know people that can write significant checks or foundations or corporations. So we are in the process of doing that so that we can, actually achieve a lot of the goals that we're setting forth from this site assessment. And we, if your site is not visited, we're looking for additional site suggestions. We're bringing them to the assessment team. And I also do want to note, because something came up in a conversation, for those of you that know, Crossroads, I've been at Crossroads for a little less than 2 years, was not involved in when we were set up, but we are the National Heritage Area for the state of New Jersey. We primarily are in 14 counties, but we are concerned with everything that's going on throughout the state. That just happens to be what Congress set up for us as our National Heritage Area boundaries. And it was brought to my attention that some sites are concerned that maybe they're not going to be included because they're not in that 14 county area. And just we want to assure people that we're concerned about the entire state, and just to, we want you to be involved, and, we want to work forward with that. So I just want to invite Josh to come forward and just briefly speak, because the site where we're at was visited already. So we thought that it would be good to briefly hear just a little bit about the experience.
Exactly, yeah. So how are you doing? Again, my name is Joshua Lisowski. I work here at the Camden County Historical Society. And I'm realizing that our site was visited pretty early in the process, and it was pretty quick and painless. It didn't really take that long, and I'm just going to kind of walk through some of the steps, that occurred while we were I guess, being assessed. So early on, probably around like June 12th or so, we received a phone call by the people conducting the assessment, kind of set up an appointment, a time to, view the site. They were pretty open-ended about when they could visit. They could work with our kind of restricted hours. The visit actually occurred on June 20th, and I guess it happened around like 10 a.m., so I assume we were pretty early in the process, or early for that day. And the two individuals that came to the site seemed pretty in a hurry, in a rush. So that kind of led to me also showing them around quickly. But basically, the assessment went through all 4 of our buildings. So in addition to the exhibit areas, primarily where we have objects on display, they also went through our auditorium space that we're in right now, and some of our collection storage areas, and also examined some of the hallways, exit doors, things like that. Because in addition to kind of the interpretive aspect of the site, they were also looking at a lot of the physical pieces of the building. And that tour, because this place is 4 buildings, that kind of brief tour of the site took about a half hour, 45 minutes. And then, there was a brief questionnaire that the assessors were kind of, if questions were not covered in the brief tour, they asked some follow-up questions. And then basically after that, they took a variety of photos of the site, both inside and outside. And that process took maybe another like 20 minutes or so. So like I said, overall, it was kind of just about like an hour and maybe 15, 20 minutes of the workday. So it wasn't that bad. It didn't have a huge impact. And I don't know. The only downsides, one of the, I guess, kind of issues is it wasn't clear from the outset exactly what they were, looking at. That they were looking at kind of everything involved with the site. And that led to some kind of like confusion and, some follow-up questions and having to go back to certain sections of the building, things like that. But I don't know. I guess are there any questions about the assessment, or is there anything on the online? Nothing?
Please, this is a great time, I think, for us to ask. Are there any questions specifically about the site assessments? Anybody had a visit themselves and have any thoughts to share, or wondering when they might be visited, or what we're going to do with the information? Go ahead.
So Ocean County was visited in Cedar Ridge Town. They were very friendly, engaging people. Will there be a feedback report that we have an opportunity? Some people like myself are not that clear spoken and may have confused them. And I was wondering if they had in their report, we could see it, and they could say, no, I didn't say these were questions that's not here. Show us one.
So for folks on the online, Tim Hart has just asked if there's going to be an opportunity once the report is in draft form for sites to actually take a look, note if there are issues that they feel should be addressed in what's there. I'm going to just jump out on a limb here and say yes. Now, however, we can't do something that overly burdens, obviously, our contract with the consultant. So I'm sure there's going to be an opportunity for some feedback. The other thing I want to, so I don't want to commit them to a particular format for that, but I'm sure there's going to be an opportunity. And I'm glad you asked that, because we'll ask them too, so we can have more information for you next time. But here's the other part of that I think is really important is, the goal is to share this information, so those sites that participate in this, we do want to share that information with you, because it's an opportunity for all of you to learn just as much as for us to learn. So this is I think I said this at the last meeting, this is a partnership for all of us to work on this together. So that information is not something that we're going to hide under a rock. It's information that we look to share.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Yes.
Just a quick question. Is there a list of the sites that were visited?
A list of the sites that have been visited. We do have a list of the sites to be visited. I don't think it's being updated in real time as to which ones have already been visited.
No, I just know that there's 80, and we have a schedule of where they're planning on going, which counties, but yeah, you can imagine that it is a very large task to do this between June and the end of August. So they have a lot to cover, and that, don't feel that if they didn't spend a lot of time. The team has a lot of experience here in New Jersey, and that was one of the reasons that they were selected to do this, because it's Hunter Research that has information. It's working with the state, with Mark's sites, Mark Texel sites. So I think there's a lot that's going into it in addition to the actual site visit.
So there is, just to reiterate, there's a list of the 140 or so sites that is on the Crossroads website if you want to take a peek. I think if you have a question about one particular site is on that list is going to be visited, you could call Crossroads and they can help you find that out. Yes, Assemblyman Scrimmage.
What's the plan? Is the plan to have celebrations at multiple sites, all the sites?
Okay.
What are we trying to do?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Excellent question. I think we're trying to do a number of different things. And one of the ways that we've been framing this is that we're projecting that we're going to have 3 types of initiatives. New Jersey has such a rich Revolutionary War history that there's a lot to cover here in our state. So what we project is that we'd like to see some legacy initiatives, things that are going to live on long after this anniversary passes. So, Jack's project to create a visitor center for the American Revolution in South Jersey, there's an example of a legacy project. A new curriculum materials for teaching New Jersey's history might be another legacy project. So that's one category. We also project there are going to be some events, some big, hopefully fun, engaging events that happen all over the state. And another, of course, characteristic of New Jersey's Revolutionary War history is it really extends pretty much through the entire war. So unlike some states who had fairly limited Revolutionary War activities happening, New Jersey has a wealth of them. So we are projecting that there will be events connected to this 250th anniversary that will extend through the whole span of the war's anniversary. So from 26 through 2033. But the third category, and I keep saying it's almost my favorite. I like the other two, but this is close to my heart. We also want to devise strategies so that there can be community-based projects and initiatives all over the state of New Jersey. So we'll be devising some of those as well, ways that every local community can dive in and create a state history project, a community history project that speaks to their interests and their needs, and is part of this overall anniversary activity. So I hope that gives you a broad brush sense of what we're thinking about. And we're right now, very early days now, our task now is to really flesh out what each of those categories of initiatives is going to look like. Okay?
And
2 questions.
oh, great, sure. Okay. Well, I was just going to say that also our part of the legislation is to set up an advisory council. That I was mentioning the campaign council part, but the advisory council is going to also be looking at a lot of what those celebrations and activities might be going forward and funding for it. But let's do the questions. And then we get to the next.
So from our participants online, I'm just going to share a comment and 2 questions, and then Sarah Janice will put the mic back. So just sharing that Vanderveer House, Craig Sutherland, who I think joined us a bit later, said that they thought the review was complete. Broad questionnaires were used with a thorough tour picture gathering of the entire house and grounds. It was very factual in nature. And then I'm sharing two questions. Jennifer Costa from Elizabeth, New Jersey Tourism. How can we request a site visit for assessment as New Jersey's original starting point? Elizabeth, New Jersey is interested in fully participating. And then the other question from Jessica Bush is, can you please comment on what the expected outcomes of this assessment will be? If the goal is to have information for fundraising, then what will fundraising accomplish? Is the intent to have sites apply for money? So those are the two questions.
Okay. Yeah. The idea of doing the site assessment is to know what all of the needs are. And when we're putting together this campaign council of individuals of means, foundations, corporations, they might have a particular interest in a certain part of the state. We're here in Camden. There might be someone who only wants to fund something in Camden, and there might be somebody else that only wants to fund something in Patterson. So that's why it's important to have these and to know what the needs are and what the costs are to get things ready. And so we had to start from somewhere with this, and so that's the idea. And the idea is also that as we get funding for this initiative, that there is a hope that there will be opportunities for grants as well. It's just that with the funding, our funding was reduced in the second year from $500,000 for the project to $300,000 for the project. And right now, our funding is one of the bits of funding that is on hold. So we are in the process of very strongly crafting a justification of why that should not be the case, and how we are really making a lot of progress, and that we really want to make sure that we continue. And so part of what is happening with the site assessment team is they are moving forward to complete their site assessments through August, and to continue their work through September. At that point, we are hopeful that we are going to have the money released, because I want them to be able to continue the work that they're doing. But they're working with us with the process that they are going to continue working until, and we have, how much they're doing each month. And, we've actually not spent some of the monies that we thought we were going to spend in a certain way, so that we had additional funds for them to move forward this year, because we knew the site assessment was going to be expensive. You're going to all of these sites around the state. It's an expensive thing to do. So yes. Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave, but I do need to know, how much money do you need per year to actually do a good job with this thing?
Well, we wanted the $500,000, which was the initial. That's what it should be. $500,000 a year, and that's what the legislation was supposed to be. But this year, it was put into the budget as $300,000. Obviously, we hope that it will increase back to the 500. And obviously, again, that we're not looking for the state funding to take care of everything. That's because you can't. No, but the point is, it's actually, we're getting a lot of attention for the fact that we've, our legislators and our governor have really been forward thinking about wanting to provide funds to do this, and dealing with two organizations that already exist that are working on this kind of work. So I think there's that interest. But as I said, in the justification that we put in, we need to get that money released, because I've got to be able to finish this. There's a lot of important projects that both of our organizations are doing, and we have momentum, and we want to move it forward. So thank you for asking that. Is there another question?
Yeah, I'll just do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a second question, and I think we've got two people sort of asking the same question. And I'm, you see how it's spelled? Oh, it's okay. Kiara Boone, a program coordinator from Liberty Hall Museum, I think has a similar question as the Elizabeth tourism question. I'm sorry for getting your name, if I can find it. As Jennifer Costa, which is, how can a site request assessment and that wants to participate?
Okay, well, first to Elizabeth and Snyder Academy, I think you're already on the list. Yeah, so you're in there. Uh, Here's what we're doing. There is a list of 140 sites, as I mentioned. Take a look on the Crossroads website to see if you're there, if your site is there. But we also recognize that that list was not exhaustive. So we actually have reached out to each of the 21 counties, and we've asked our partners in the county cultural and heritage agencies to take a look at the list for their county and provide us input on additional sites that perhaps ought to be considered, maybe sites that have changed and, maybe a site that is sadly not there anymore, whatever suggestions they might have. And so I think the majority of counties have responded. We have a few counties that we haven't heard from yet, but we'll continue to reach out to them. And what are we going to do with those names? We are sharing those with our consultants, Clark, Kate, and Hintz, and they are going to incorporate ones that are feasible to add to the list in the current contract they have. And then we'll take a look and we'll see maybe what sites weren't looked at, and we're going to assess at the end of it what could we do for those additional sites. It may not, in many cases, I want to be absolutely accurate on this. Many of the sites on that list are actually not physical structures. There's some monuments, there's some markers on there, there's some landscapes. So there's a variety of different kinds of sites. And I think as we move forward with our planning, we're going to be looking at programmatic strategies of different varieties, programmatic ideas and initiatives that would interpret markers and landscapes and other kinds of features other than physical buildings. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, to work creatively together to come up with some of these program strategies to highlight all of this history moving forward. And I want to just add, this study, I don't think there's ever been a study quite like this. Right, Mark? I'm looking at Mark Texel. As far as I know, there's never been, we've never taken a moment in time and looked at all of the Reservoir sites in the state of New Jersey. So there's a tremendous value, I think, to this study just at that level. It's the first time we've gathered all of this information in one place to take a look at it. And I want to add, too, that that site visit that Josh described to you of about an hour and 15 minutes, our consultants are also taking a look at other studies that have been done on some of these sites. And some of those studies are over at DEP in their records, preservation plans that may have been done for some of these sites. We're also trying to gather preservation studies or historic structure reports that may have been done by nonprofit groups working on different buildings. So we're really trying to aggregate the available information. And once we do all that, we'll be able to, I think, speak much more authoritatively on devising those next steps and strategies for working with all of these sites. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that there's no one answer that fits all of these dozens and dozens of sites. I think we're going to be looking at a variety of different strategies. But the important thing is to include them all and think of creative ways that we all can highlight their history. All right, does that work?
Yeah. And sites are generally called maybe 10 days before, 2 weeks before the visit to try to set things up because obviously they're trying to schedule something so that they're not, they're in one area of the state, at a particular time. So if I don't know if people have been called and maybe it isn't the date that you think they're coming, they may be delayed slightly, but, rest assured that they will be visiting the sites. So again, I did talk about the campaign council. We're in the process. Oh, somebody else have a question?
No, I just want to make sure we're on to the next.
Yes, I did talk about, I'm sorry, was there another question?
Mark, did you have a question? No.
Do you want to say anything? Do you want to come up here so we can hear you? Sorry. Mark Texel is coming up for a minute.
we had, I think we've had about 12 sites, state sites visited, including some that we weren't even aware had Revolutionary War context, like Barnegat Lighthouse. Was a massacre site there, so that was good. And I've actually gone back and asked our park professionals, the resource interpretive specialists, to critique the visits to get a sense of how they're going. And overall, really well. Some they were a little rushed, as I think as Josh had mentioned. That was one comment that one person got there later than the other person, and they each had their own set of stuff to go through. But we're trying to get a sense of, we'd like to see the final product too soon from the state side, so we can start looking at putting that into capital planning, the next 5 years so whatever they're going to be putting out in the way the reports will be good for us to look at the capital needs. But I've been telling people this is really about visitor readiness, but really it's about, you're calling it capital assessment, capital needs. But we've been telling our constituents it's about how, are the sites ready for that. The only point, I think a couple people in the field said that the one concern that came up from one of their volunteer partners was, is this going to bias against the smaller sites that aren't as visitor ready as the bigger sites are, or better organized, better funded, not necessarily size-wise. And then when you get to this funding stuff, is that going to be, will there be a rating scale? So out of the 140 sites, is it going to show like the ones that are the best ready and the ones that are the least ready? And then is that going to potentially put us into a Hunger Games situation for the funding? So that was the only thing I wanted to add to the discussion about the site visits, was as the consultants do their work, is to caution against having it, because that might then discourage some of the small sites from even trying to get ready for the Semiquincentennial if they don't think they're going to have a shot at getting any of the funding. Or so maybe there needs to be a way so that it doesn't show most ready and least ready in the way it's presented.
Right. Well, that's a very good point, and I think certainly, we want this to be a positive thing for everyone. This is a win-win. So the point is that this has not been looked at before. It's not going to hurt you. It can only help you. And so that's really what we're looking to do. And again, we are, working on, we worked with a fundraising consultant on a small contract to help us set up this campaign council. We're in the process, some of Crossroads board members are in the process of reaching out to individuals to serve on this council. Actually, Steve Askew is one of the people that was reaching out among other board members, and we're leading that initiative. We're working with the Historical Commission on the overall advisory council that we will be setting up, that this will be a part of. Crossroads is also doing a fall fundraiser. It's going to be at Tusculum in Princeton, which was John Witherspoon's estate, on a Saturday night. We're going to have Bonnie Watson Coleman there as our honorary chair. And we also will have a skit with John Witherspoon, Alexander Hamilton, and Aaron Burr. And we're also going to, thanks to our former board chair, Patrick Murray, we're going to have Ian Kahn there, who played George Washington in turn. So it should be a really interesting evening. It's an opportunity for us to engage new patrons and corporate support. We hope that people will generously decide to come and contribute to that. And I did address, obviously, our situation with the state funding for 2020 that, again, we have been moving forward to get as much of the site assessment done as we possibly can. But obviously, it's critical to what we hope to do in the coming years to be able to get this funding so we can move forward and not wait. So that's kind of where we are. And Steve just came back into the room. I was mentioning with the campaign council that you have a list of people that you're approaching in addition to some of our other board members to get them on board for that, so that we will have a body that can start looking at this and raising the funds. Thank you.
This is Sarah again from Folks Online. I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on Mark's comment. And I know that, hey, does anyone like to be assessed? I don't. Anybody love getting an assessment? No, it's not. I mean, and I understand. I think we understand that one as a site being assessed can feel a little uncomfortable with that. We want to do everything we can to dispel that feeling of discomfort here. We have, as we've said, a broad variety of Rev.War related sites in the state. And, our goal here, as Janice was saying, but I think our goal is to help every one of them that wants to engage with this to shine. And the way that Monmouth Battlefield will shine is going to be significantly different from the way that Bainbridge House on Nassau Street will shine. Each of these sites is in a unique, geographical location with different kinds of transportation access, with different kinds of parking facilities, different sizes, etc. So again, I think one size doesn't fit all. And what I hope that we'll be able to do over the next few years is help each of these Revolutionary War sites to find that strategy where they can shine. And rest assured that that's the goal here, not to come in and be a mean teacher and tell you everything you're doing wrong. That's not the goal. The goal is to try to figure out how we can help each and every one of these sites with their specific characteristics and challenges. Okay. Now, for everyone, both in the room and online, we are showing the resources page. So we hope that you will take advantage of those. And that, by the way, the ASLH annual report I mentioned is the second link on there. So hopefully you'll take a look at that along with the other resources we have. And I think now we can throw it open for, first of all, letting you know our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, October 2nd, and we're going up to Flemington, and we're going to be at the courthouse, which is the site of a very different piece of New Jersey history. It's in Carrie Fellow's backyard, right? Which, it's actually in her office, there we go. But you know what, that gives me an opportunity to remind everyone that while the kind of the centerpiece, certainly of our attention and the national attention will be on the Revolutionary War history, we are also charged to think about 250 years of U.S. history. So we want to emphasize that other historic sites in our state that aren't necessarily Rev War related, we want you to play with us too. So there'll be ways in which we can engage all of our historic sites. But I think now we want to see if you have more questions. We'd be happy to answer them. So either online or in the room, fire away. Well, we must have done an excellent job. I'm not seeing any questions. Oh yes, very good. We do have a question. So for folks online, let me repeat, I'll summarize the question. So it comes from the Brigade of the American Revolution, and basically wanting to know what we're thinking in terms of where battle reenactments fit into this, and where the reenactment groups, what role they're going to play. First of all, I want to really encourage the Brigade and other reenactment groups to join us, to send representatives to our August 15th listening session. And we'll be sending out more information about that as soon as we confirm the location. It may be at Howell Living History Farm, but we just are not confirmed on that. But that's a great opportunity for you to share some of those ideas with us. We'd love to hear what you all are thinking and what you'd like to see. It's great. This is the time to be doing that. But I think Janice and I and our staffs and our boards would be ridden out of town on a rail if some battle reenactments are not featured during this anniversary. So I think that's one of the top items on our list. Rest assured, that's come up certainly from our beginning meetings. We've been hearing that, and certainly that's top of mind for us. So including reenactments, including reenactors, and a lot of these programs is certainly a priority. Okay? Is that
Yeah,
the way to answer it?
absolutely. And, I think that a lot of the work of the advisory council will be to kind of figure out, what kind of events and reenactments and things, will be going on throughout the state and, not having everything on the same day and, making sure that we can really maximize the impact. So, yes. Yeah. I was going to mention one other quick thing. I do have some, and for those people on the GoToMeeting, I don't have a few, but I do have some copies of our signage brochure. And part of this initiative is to try to get signage that's cohesive throughout the state of New Jersey for Revolutionary War sites. I'm raising funds to do these signs throughout the state, and so if you have, a location that is interested in having a sign, please get in touch with us. And, a part of it is I have some funding available, but also it would be good to have some leads of companies that might be interested. And there's an opportunity for the company to have their logo, tastefully put on the sign. We have one at the old barracks. We have two at Trent House. We have one up in New Brunswick, where Sue is in the process today of meeting about what we're going to be doing in Elizabeth at Snyder Academy and First Presbyterian. We're going to have one at Liberty Hall. There's a lot going on throughout the state. And also Abraham Stats House, we had one, and we're going to do one at the Van Horn House. So, please let us know if you have an interest and where and what kind of sign, and we'd be happy to work with you on that.
Sorry, we just have a question about who they should contact about the signage from your process.
Yeah. For signage, it would either be Sue Kaufman or me, and that's SKUFMANN at revolutionarynj.org, or me, Janice Selinger, which is JSELINGER at revolutionarynj.org.
Now, I know we have on the line, for example, so we actually have in the rooms, we have Save Ellis Island here. So just following on from the question about reenactments and reenactors, definitely that's top of the list of items that we have on our to-do list to look at. But I also want to remind everyone that those aren't the only kind of events that we're thinking about. We want to think, one of the things that we do project that we're going to be doing probably in the next year to 18 months is thinking about themes, historical themes that we could use to tie the anniversary together. And our hope is that through that process of developing some really engaging and relevant historical themes, that'll be a tool for encouraging programming all over the state, and not just at the Rev War sites. So we don't know yet. We haven't picked those themes yet. That'll be one of the fun things we get to do, fun and challenging things we get to do over the next 12 to 18 months. But I think that that's going to be a tool for extending this out to all of our historical groups and sites, not just the Rev War ones. Other questions? Yes.
It's quite possible that USA 250 is all going to focus on Philadelphia. Is there some coordination between the New Jersey organizations and the Pennsylvania organizations and the national organizations working in Philadelphia, and then New Jersey will share some of that line item?
Yes, are you familiar with that group? Have you had some contact? Have you gone into their meetings, or I'm just curious what your
I just know Daniel Collins. Collins from the national group. Heard some of his ideas for the community group. At least for this part of New Jersey, there might be some serious piggybacking to be done to get New Jersey a little bit of the spotlight at the time.
Excellent. So the question for those of you online was what kind of coordination or collaboration are we looking at with USA 250, which is the nonprofit group in Philadelphia. And so we are in touch with them, and we've actually met with Andrew, and we have an ongoing, Janice and I both have an ongoing, good relationship with Danielle, who is now the executive director at USA 250. So we have been in touch with them. Those of you who may not know about them, they're the group that formed a number of years ago, and they were instrumental in getting the federal legislation passed. And their goal was to get it passed 10 years in advance of the anniversary, and they achieved that goal. So hats off to them. Really good work on that score. Our understanding from the last time we were with Danielle is that now USA 250 is kind of redirecting their attention away from the national objectives and focusing more on Philadelphia and developing really exciting activities and programming for Philadelphia. And we also understand that they've identified 5 hubs of activity in the greater Philadelphia area, and one of those is the Washington Crossing hub, which includes a substantial portion of New Jersey. So we do look forward to continuing that dialogue, and we're excited to look at ways that we can collaborate and work with them. So good point, and we definitely have that on our radar, very much so.
Right, but I do also want to say that clearly we've made it a point to point out that it doesn't end when they cross over from Washington Crossing. There's a lot that happened in New Jersey, and there's a lot that we're doing, and they're aware that we're working and we're going to work in conjunction. Thank you.
Other questions? Any online? Okay. Other questions?
Other people did join, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Sure. Do you want to drop in this?
There are no more questions. I think we're just going to briefly introduce the people who joined later so that we'll consider them too. And again, I apologize if I mispronounce your name. It happens to me all the time, so I know it's frustrating. But I did mention Craig Sutherland had joined us. Cynthia Holland-Wallace House and ODP Associates. Jack Jennings, Kate Markle, Kiara Boone, and Todd Graysmith are all online right now. I think that's everyone. I'm just going to check the chat screen one more time to see if any questions have come up, and I don't see any, so I think we are good on this end.
I want to point out Chris Burks, the chairman of the Camden County Historical Society.
So we've just been introduced to Chris Burks, who has joined us as well in the room from the Camden County Historical Society. So thank you all for coming. We will hang around if you want to have any more chats about this. Jack, are you open if folks want to come down and tour the museum?
Would love to have everyone, anyone tour the museum, on the hall, and in our grounds.
It's well worth it. So if you haven't taken the time to do that, I really encourage you to do that. So it's been great to have you all here.
And just one more thing, if you have not signed the sign-in sheet, if you could please do that. You're here in the room with us. Thank you.
So sign off.